The story begins by showing a married couple named Edna and Larry, who every day work as shellfish miners to live their daily lives. Once they saw a woman who had fallen unconscious on the seashore. Edna, who felt sorry for her, immediately asked her husband to help the woman and take her home to be treated. Arriving home, the woman finally came to her senses and confessed that her name was Emmy. It came from the village next door. Edna, who felt sorry for Emmy's condition, she also intended to take a photo of Emmy and post it to social media so that her family could know Emmy's whereabouts. But Emmy actually forbade Edna not to post her photos to social media. Out of pity, Edna finally allows Emmy to stay temporarily at her home. The next morning, Edna is shocked to find a meal prepared by Emmy as an expression of her gratitude. When they were having breakfast, Larry said that he would return to take Emmy to go home. But Emmy actually refused the request and said that she no longer had a place to live because she was previously an orphan and had been adopted by her adoptive parents. There Emmy also told that she had been expelled by her adoptive parents and no longer had a place to live. Edna, who felt sorry to hear all of Emmy's stories, finally he again told Emmy to stay at home even though Larry did not like Emmy's presence at home. A few days later, Edna took Emmy to a clothing store owned by one of her friends named Tessa, and introduces Amy as his cousin. Tessa, who can read a person's character, had warned Edna to always be careful with Emmy. And at the same time, Emmy accidentally saw two policemen who made her look very scared, and immediately asked permission to go to the toilet. Upon arriving home, Edna immediately told Emmy to try on the clothes she had just bought. And at the same time Larry also accidentally saw Emmy, who was changing her clothes. After changing her clothes, Emmy immediately showed Edna, who made her feel very amazed by Emmy's beauty. There Edna again intends to take a photo of Emmy and post it to social media. Emmy, who heard the request, was very panicked and again asked Edna not to take her picture. In the evening, Emmy accidentally hears the sighs of Larry and Edna, who are having sex. Out of curiosity, Emmy finally immediately peered at them while imagining that she also participated in the activity. The next day, Edna asks permission to collect the proceeds from the shellfish payment to her customers and asks Emmy to take care of her sick husband. Meanwhile, Larry, who could no longer hold back his lust, finally approached and invited Emmy to fight. And since then they have been fighting almost every day when Edna leaves them. As time went on, Edna began to suspect the change in her husband's attitude that had recently changed, and confided all his suspicions to Emmy. There Edna also said that she loved her husband very much and did not want to lose him. While Emmy, who heard all the stories, could only be silent without saying a word. One night Edna woke up and found her husband not in bed. Out of curiosity, she tried to find her husband and was very surprised after seeing her husband, who was carrying out combat activities with Emmy. Edna, who saw the incident, was very angry and disappointed with Emmy, who had cheated on her husband. But Larry actually defended Emmy by saying that this was all his fault because Edna had previously forced Emmy to stay in their house. He told Emily to leave immediately. Hearing those words, Edna became even more angry with Emmy and immediately asked her to leave her house immediately. After the incident, Larry finally allowed Emmy to stay in their house and made Emmy his second wife. Inevitably, Edna was finally forced to accept Amy to stay at home because before she was also still very much in love with her husband. And since then they have now had to take turns to be able to sleep with Larry every night. Not wanting to give up her husband was seized by Emmy, Edna also continued to try to find her husband's attention. There he also had time to tell Emmy to have fun first with her husband because at some point he would definitely reclaim her husband. Over time, Edna finally managed to snatch her husband back from Emmy. Still trying to get her husband's attention, while Larry he is now also starting to feel bored with Emmy and does not hesitate to reject Emmy's invitation to take him to battle. Emmy, who knows that Larry doesn't care anymore, makes her very jealous, especially after finding out that now Edna is pregnant with her son Larry. Feeling that Larry did not care about him anymore, Emmy finally decided to go and spend the night drinking. Returning home, Emmy again approached those who were carrying out combat activities, asked permission to participate in the activity. But Larry refused Emmy's request and immediately kicked her out of her house. Emmy, who was already feeling desperate, finally remembered all the events she had experienced. Tell me who Emily is. It turns out that during this time Emmy was a fugitive who had killed his mistress and also his wife. One day, Emmy accidentally sees Larry and Edna looking for shells and deliberately fakes fainting so that they can help her. It turns out that all this time Emmy was a usurper of people's husbands, and deliberately wanted to snatch her husband Etna. After remembering all the events, Emmy finally immediately took the sickles and killed them. After that, Emmy immediately clean up and rerun the action. Along the way, Emmy meets a man named Roman who works as a soldier and introduces himself as Albert, and the movie ends.